Thank you for joining us on this initial series that will cover Acumatica at a very high level. This will be the first in a series. There's another meeting. We'll be covering the financial side of the system, which will include general ledger, payables, receivables, banking, and then third in the series will be covering order entry, inventory, purchasing, and let's call it operational. You're welcome to join all three. The agenda here, we're going to go through a little bit of an Acumatica overview, which is just going to talk a little bit about Acumatica and the platforms. Once we get through with the demo, we'd like to open up the mic and have questions. Anything that you'd like to know about the product or know about Cal, you're welcome to ask any questions. With that in mind, let's jump into the first slide here. So we're living in a very different transition point, I think, when it comes to computers. I mean, analog, a lot of us know what that is, early stages, DOS, analog phones, no voice over IP. I consider the modern technology as kind of the client server, kind of where most systems are today. But what we're seeing is what we call a digital transformation right now, where our systems are becoming more than just screens with information on it. One example that we're going to do in probably series 2 of this is where we're going to actually show you where the things we see with our eyes can be automatically digitally transferred into viable information. What I mean by that is just imagine that you got an expense receipt, and typically that's being used to maybe reimburse an employee, but now have that photograph that gets taken be converted, and it reads the information on the receipt and then tries to fill in a lot of the information that maybe someone would have to enter in to continue processing their expense receipt. So when you look at just that one element, that's where we're going with new systems, and we've all heard of AI, artificial intelligence, but we are in a digital transformation right now, and there's not many systems on the market that are currently used by the majority of the companies out there that can take advantage of that. So what's the best way to transform your business to thrive in this new economy? And I can tell you that Cal started 6 years ago doing an analysis of the market. We spent 3 full years looking at the market, understanding who the players were, who was moving, who wasn't, who was just throwing a web interface layer over an old product and calling it new. We studied that for 3 years. 3 years ago, we made a decision to move to Acumatica, and we currently run Acumatica in-house. So we know what this system does because we use it every day, and every day Acumatica surprises us in what it can do. And with every new release comes literally game-changing changes that allow us to look at our business and run our business at a different level. So when we look at Acumatica core products, it is made up of these 5 main sections. It has a financial management solution, a project accounting, a built-in inventory, sales order processing, inventory management, purchase orders, side of it. It has an integrated CRM. Just recently in the latest release, they have also released an integrated payroll. So when you take these main components and then you go to the next screen, you take these and now you bring them together with what we call additions, where a field service, an e-commerce, a construction company, a distribution, a manufacturing company all need that accounting platform, and in some cases you need that project piece. And in some cases you may sell on the web, so you need to be able to plug in an e-commerce plugin. Acumatica has these 5 additions, which then take the components on the previous screen and marry them with additional technology to serve a certain industry. Let's go to the next screen, Sean. And what you're going to see here is this screen is probably the screen that really sets Acumatica apart from every other accounting platform out there, or ERP platform if you want to look at it at a larger scale. And that is, if you look at that middle area where it says Acumatica XRP Platform, most of the systems that are on the market, if you're talking about NetSuite or Intact, they both came out in the 1999-2001 timeframe. Okay, if we go back 20 years, we were all on flip phones, and we weren't even close to starting to use smartphones. So yes, they're modern cloud platforms. There's no doubt they're a cloud platform. But the technology that they had available when the entire product was written was very different then. Acumatica XRP Platform was literally born in the 2010-2011 timeframe. Very different timeframe, different tool sets, and with a different focus. Many of the solutions, that I've just mentioned, they have, a complete cloud platform. But yes, and they have a mobile platform, but it's not one platform. I mean, the mobile apps are mobile apps. They're different. Acumatica can be run. Every single screen that shows up in Acumatica can in effect responsibly redesign itself to fit and run on any device, no matter what the size is. And we're going to talk a little bit about that later. So this platform that you see here is brand new, but the platform is enabled with all kinds of capabilities that most systems don't have. It incorporates an integrated mobile framework, multi-tenant, user security, which all systems have, but again, we can do single sign-on. This product has localization, meaning that it can be run anywhere in the world in any language, without just doing a language translator. It has built-in workflow and has a robust open-ended API, which application programmer interface, so you can talk to this product at any level. So on top of that, you have those industry editions, you have those order entry, inventory that we just saw, and then down below it, you take that information and now you're going to put it on either SQL Server or MySQL. You can run it in the AWS as a SaaS application or the Azure cloud, and you have all from the dev side, Visual Studio, .NET, C# and ASP.NET. So together, this creates a platform that I can say from my opinion is can't be compared to any of the other solutions that are out there right now. Next slide, Sean. So really, cross-connected modules with workflow. Every module is connected to each other. And the design of Acumatica was done with the idea that you don't have the same information in multiple files. So for example, if you have a customer and you have a vendor, but they're the same company, so you buy from them but you sell to them, in Acumatica, that's one record in the system. It's called a business account. So you can set that record up once, where most systems will have a separate vendor file, a separate customer file. It was designed in a different way than any of the other solutions, because back in 2000 time frame, people weren't thinking the way that the Acumatica team was thinking in 2010. Next slide, Sean. So again, Acumatica, 6,500 customers as of January of this year. Fastest growing ERP cloud product on the market. Now, when you take all this technology and you put it in the Amazon Web Services environment, you can also see that it seamlessly integrates over to into an Azure environment, Office 365, Power BI. All of these solutions plug right into Acumatica without having to do any interfaces or anything like that. I mean, AWS is a very large government provider of cloud services. So their environment is one of the most secure environments probably in the world, and that's where Acumatica runs if you run their SaaS offering. Next slide, Sean. So when you talk about a cloud solution versus a client-server on-premise solution, I mean, it becomes harder to talk with an on-premise solution with all these different cloud services that are now available. But Acumatica, being a born-in-the-cloud solution, seamlessly integrates with all of these other cloud solutions. Think of the terms of the way you might do business if you have a contract that gets signed. You know, we do this with insurance now or real estate closings. We use DocuSign. Well, again, connecting that up to some of the solutions that are out there on the market right now are very difficult. But with a solution like Acumatica, whether it be DocuSign, Adobe Sign, Power BI, box storage, or even integrating with other CRM systems, Acumatica can do that because it has that open API, and if there's not an endpoint for you to connect to, you can create one. So all of these things, whether it's you know, e-commerce or some of these you know, financial BI tools, all of these can seamlessly integrate to Acumatica and you know, and be very cost effective because you know, you don't have to develop those interfaces. Modern security. This one I could just going to tell you just a you know, quick story here. We have had 5 clients hijacked in the past year. Now most of them are running their software on-prem. Their data was hijacked. In many cases, some spent as much as $35,000 to get their data back. But literally, we've had 5 clients get hijacked, and in many cases, they paid the fee. Some of them had insurance to cover it. Some didn't. But the fact that this would reside and you don't have to worry about security at the level you would if you're running on-premise or on your own servers, all of those concerns go away when you know, you're in a cloud, which you know, that is a major advantage. This is the slide that really talks about the future, about the digital transformation. I mean, as early as 2 and 3 years ago, when we were going to summits for Acumatica, they were already using like an Alexa device or you know, Siri to ask you know, Acumatica to pull out balances for vendors. The fact that their platform can seamlessly already integrate to this type of level of technology just shows you that its platform is very different than all the other platforms that are out there. You'll also see, you know, how like the dashboard screen on you know, on a full screen looks one way, and then automatically, responsively changes its design on the phone, but you can still work with it. You know, again, most systems will not allow you to do anything like that, where Acumatica does. All right, this is another big game changer. Everybody likes the idea of the cloud, but is scared of the cloud because they feel like, well, once they go to the cloud, their data is somewhere, they don't know where it is, they don't have access to it. And be honest, you know, almost all of the cloud vendors that are out there, that is exactly the case. You know, if you do decide to move from them at the end, they give you your data back in a, you know, in a basket, you know, whether it be a, you know, flat files or comma delimited, very difficult to work with, you know, whereas Acumatica allows you to be able to take a snapshot of your data at any point in the cloud, if that's where you're running, and you could literally load your snapshot onto your laptop. All you'd have to do is load either a, you know, free version of SQL or MySQL, and then load a 2-user version of Acumatica, which Acumatica provides not only to us for demo purposes, but for you as a client. And you could restore your entire system and then have access to your SQL relationship database that would be running in that AWS cloud. They also give you the option of running a subscription model, which means you can subscribe to the best technology, run it where you want, or you can purchase the software in a traditional manner and pay an enhancement fee and run it where you want. Where, you know, that means you have a little bigger upfront cost, but you're not renting your software or leasing your software month after month, year after year, you know, decade after decade. So Acumatica gives you the choice to move to a SaaS cloud, a subscription, run it where you want, or purchase the software and then just pay an enhancement fee to get new releases, and then have a more lower total cost of ownership long term. So The other thing that's different about Acumatica is it's what I call growth-friendly licensing, which, you know, for lack of a better word, most and every company that I know of out there prices by user, named user, you know, or concurrent user. You come in as you grow, you get more users, you get more cost. Acumatica takes a different approach. They look at it as what we call a resource level. And I won't spend a lot of time on this, but basically they size the resource you need based on looking at what they consider to be, you know, your commercial transaction level. And a commercial transaction is, if you're a finance company, might be how many AP vouchers you use or process or invoices in a month. If you're a non-financial company where you have sales orders, which obviously you probably pay a lot less vendors, but you have a lot more customers, they'll look at how many invoices you produce. So they'll look at a company that says, all right, if you're doing 1,000 invoices a month, you need a resource level in horsepower for server and memory to process a company with 1,000 invoices. So, but Acumatica, if you've got 30 people there that are in the company, or even 40, they don't care how many of those 40 people have access, because they've kind of developed the sizing matrix that says, hey, if a company's doing this many, they're going to have that many employees. We don't care how many there are. You can continue to grow and grow, and you don't get nickeled and dimed with those users. When you get to be a bigger company, you go to a medium level or a large level, and they're all in effect sized to process transactions across. And it doesn't count every transaction. It just looks at either those two key transaction commercial levels and uses that to size the proper CPU. Next slide. So data ownership, we've already talked about. You own your data, and you can get to it any time. Free training. They have an Acumatica University. Free training is available, for all your employees. You can go up, and it's interactive training, and it's the same training that we have access to. Very extensive, multiple courses, hands-on, all free. New release that just came out, two releases, 2020 R1 just came out in March, 2020 R2 will come out in October. Next slide, Sean. I mean, these just shows you some of the areas that, usability, new modules and workflows, technology, manufacturing services, inventory. They added matrix, project construction. All of these were just the changes in the areas for the newest release. I think there were 600 pages of release notes with 2020 R1. That shows you how fast this product is moving and how extensive they are expanding the product, with release by release. And last but not least, we're going to talk a little bit about that responsive design, true born in the cloud technology. You're going to see it, because Sean's going to be showing you that in live for the demo. So I look forward to having Sean show you the product. Sean?
Alrighty, so what we're going to do here to start is to show the responsive design that George mentioned. So currently I'm in Chrome, and this works in all of the browsers that you can think of. So I just preference to Chrome. Also, I use Firefox a lot as well. So with this particular responsive design, if I click the minimize, you can actually see where the dashboard is resetting itself by that. And I also wanted to show on a customer profile screen where our tabs are adjusting for that flow. And then if I go back to this screen, you can see where it's, even if I was looking at an iPad or a different device like a phone, where it's adjusting for that screen size. I'm just going to expand that again. A lot of things we're going to show today are seen right now because we have admin access to the environment, so everything that we're showing could be limited based on security roles and rights throughout the system. So for example, this dashboard that I'm showing you right now, maybe only your salesperson or your AR person has visibility to it, not your purchasing person. So and that's going to be throughout every screen and every function that I show you today. So the first thing I'd like to talk about with the environment we're in here is universal search. So the universal search if I type customer in, is going to look at 4 different sections. First section is going to be the menu items. So you can see here where it's finding any menu item in the system where the word customer is part of. If I go to transactions and I had transaction or profile screens, I'd use the word customer and pull it in here. It also is going to go out to the help documents and find words like that, so that can automatically get into a process flow that's designed by Acumatica, or even personalize it for my company where I can go in and personalize that experience. That the customer flow for company X allows me to process this way and have a visual documentation for my users. And then also it's going to go through all the files that are in the system and try to find that verbiage as well. So where the product is, or that word is, or also in the file name. The next thing I want to talk about is going to be the customer view dashboard. So this is an example of a dashboard that comes right out of the box. When we deploy Acumatica, we install about 10 to 15 dashboards that you're allowed to either not use, modify, or just use as examples to start working your flows into the system. So on this particular dashboard, we're going to take a look at a couple things. The first thing I want to mention is parameters. So parameters is right now looking at my customer account ID. So for this dashboard currently, we're seeing all of the data in the system that's related to our widgets. So the first widget here I have is what they call a scorecard, and the scorecard is taking account for me. I also have some bar charts, some pie charts. I have data views, and then I also have some pivot table data. And all these different items that we have on this dashboard, we're going to kind of come back to through this presentation on different screens, different uses on all these things. So the base of all this information is a generic inquiry. So what we're going to do is say that I want to take a look at USA bartending school, and I want that to actually update all of my data on my screen here and relate it to only them. So what it just did was dynamically update every widget, every data view based on that parameter. If I take it out, it's going to re-update all that information. One of the new features in 2020 R1 is actually the refresh. What they saw from users was people wanted to have that data, but sometimes they just wanted a full screen of data, which takes time to run queries. So they actually implemented a new feature that allows each widget to have a refresh time on it. So if I reload this now, it's going to not go and collect all the data. It's going to actually have that there at different times throughout the day. So if I'm continually on this screen, it's going to refresh based on those settings. So with these settings, something to keep in mind, again, we talked about security at the beginning, you can actually allow users to personalize their dashboards by making copies of this as well. Another nice new feature of 2020 R1 is bringing coloring conditioning over to the dashboard as well, and also integrating pivot tables so that generic inquiry data is gathered by your parameters, just like Excel, and shows me in a pivot table right on my dashboard. The next thing I'd like to talk about is what Acumatica calls workspaces. So for this workspace, I'm going to go to receivables. You can see a couple different things here. We have the blue boxes up top, which are called tiles. The tiles are very useful for adding parameters or conditions to a screen. So I can actually say new invoice or new sales order or new credit memo, and I can actually pass those parameters to that box, which is all personalizable for the company, that their system administrator can actually publish these out to everyone in the company, limit access, and even allow the users to personalize for themselves. The next step in here that we want to talk about is the menu item. So the menu item are what's going to drive us to our transaction screen, to our profile screen, to different process screens. You can see we have inquiries and reports and how it's all kind of breaking up for the user. So what we're seeing now is a quick menu. To continue with this particular screen, I may only want to use these kind of things on an everyday basis, but there still is more screens, more reports related to my receivables. So I can actually do my show all, and now it's allowing me to see everything that's related to that module or that workspace that's assigned by my system admin. Another item that I have the ability to change is, do I want to see this on my left side panel here? I can actually unpin this so that it's no longer there, and I can now access it only from the more items. And then I can also repin it so that it's back in my view here. Now, a little additional feature for my show less, show more functionality is my configuration, where I can actually, as a user, say, well, I never really look at credit terms or sales prices. I don't want to touch the write-off on a daily basis. I still want to see them, but I don't want them right in my screen every time I open that. So now when I exit that and I go to show less, you can see now that information has disappeared on a personal user experience, not the company experience. So the next thing that I wanted to mention were these stars. So the stars allow the user to add a favorite, just like you would in Chrome or Firefox, and you can kind of bookmark that as your own working workspace. So I can either favorite tiles, or I can favorite the actual menu items. So if I go back to here and I say I want to kind of have this process on my favorite screen, click that, and I come back, and now I have my print invoices memos under my receivable area on my favorite screen. I kind of want to drill this down now into where you can kind of see this data more at a user experience. The example we're going to look at today is going to be our opportunity, and look at our primary list, or a generic inquiry that kind of controls them. One more feature before we dive in there is another 2020 R1 release, is I can actually create a new record right from this as well, or I can click on that and take me into the generic inquiry. So generic inquiries don't typically look like this right out of the box. We took some time and took some of the features so that we can actually demonstrate what you can do to personalize this experience. The first thing that we did here was we added a coloring condition that is looking at the status of the opportunity. So anything that is new is highlighting the whole row as yellow. Anything that's won is showing me everything in green. And anything that's lost is highlighting that in red. I also have a cell-specific condition where I said if it's someone that's a prospect instead of a customer, highlight that blue. Draw a little more attention to that. Another way that you can use that is to kind of flag maybe a possible user error that you've seen, where if I go to the stage of 1, which now I'm clicking on that word 1, I'm going to hold Shift on my keyboard and hit the button F. The system knows to filter automatically on the cell that I clicked. And you can see here I use that as well. So if open is my status when my stage is 1, hey, let's have a visibility to my user to see that. We are currently looking at all records. So I may want to take advantage of the At Me functionality, where it's personalizing the records based on my login, which is Maxwell Baker. So if I come over here, you can see my opportunity is a little different than what we saw in all records. I can even do some more additional filters where maybe I want to say, well, I don't want to see 1 because I feel like they're not something I'm working on right now. A feature that we use a lot internally in our system is the functionality of the allowing to see a count, a sum, an average, a max, or a min right at the total of your generic inquiry. A good example of this is it's saying I have 9 documents that are related to 8 customers, and I have a sum of 617,000. So if I come back to all records, this will dynamically adjust based on all the records that I'm looking at. So all my records are equal to 37 across 30. So we thought that was a really nice feature to show everyone. One more thing that we can do is different ways of filtering. You can see up here I have statuses where I can say I don't want to see 1 or lost. I can check, I can clear all, I can select all. I'm just going to cancel out of there. I already have a stage 1 that was filtered, as you remember. I can just drag and drop this. Now it's going to remove that. But because I'm doing it in this session, it's going to come back, that filter, because it's designed by the generic inquiry to always be there. Another thing that we'd like to take a look at is the filtering, that I can be as an admin, where I can create them and share them throughout the company. I can make them default so that when I come into this screen, it automatically goes to the default instead of all records of my opportunities. And then we can add different conditions to them and save them. And again, that is user-driven. So if I don't have access to do that, I can only do them for my personal experience, but it still allows that user to create stuff that they may use that you don't want another user to see. The next feature that I'd like to show is the side panel. So for a side panel, I'm going to click on my U.S. bartending school. We're going to use this customer throughout the rest of the demo here. I'm going to click on this screen here. So this side panel here is going out and it's going to pass that parameter that I clicked to USA Bartender. It's going to show me the customer profile page it's using the responsive design of Acumatica to kind of put that on the side there, but still allow me to see the information that I want my eyes attracted on the side here. I have the ability to go through different tabs, like if I was on an iPad or a smaller screen here. But I also have the ability to check this box here where it's going to do like a quick overlay of the record so that I'm still on my generic inquiry, but I'm able to access and modify information if I have access to, and do some different actions and see some different information such as contact. So I can either pin that all the way back. I can hit this button again and bring it back to my side panel, or maybe I like to see it at a half a screen. So I got some different options there. Another way is that dashboard that we looked at when we first started was that customer view. You can see it's taking, again, that information, passing it over, and showing me all the different information that's related to that based on that dashboard. I can also switch maybe to cartridge world. Let's see what they have. And now the system's going to go in and update all my widgets based on that parameter that was passed. And again, I could expand it or minimize it or get rid of it. The next thing I'd like to show is the pivot table that we kind of talked about as well at the first dashboard that we saw. But in this one, I was able to actually make a pivot table of the data that's referenced on this generic inquiry. So I'm just going to click this filter here. And what it's doing is taking all my data based on my filters. So my filter that I have here is that it's equal to new or open. Just like Excel, it gives me all my different data and allows me to say how I want to see it. So I have my rows, my columns, and my values. If you're looking at your values, it gives you a couple different ways. Right now I'm just looking as a number, but I can see it as a grand total percentage or different percentages of the row. I can sort it in different ways. I actually put a label on this one, so if it is empty, that it's called unassigned rather than empty. So I can have a different label. And I'm also collapsing everything, so it's not the full expansion of all this data as soon as I open it. So going back to the screen itself, you can see here I have, let's say, Acme Brick. I can expand that, and my contacts, well, one's assigned to Joe here, and the other one's not assigned, and it kind of shows me the stage it's in and the value that's associated to that. Now, if I collapse that again, and I want to take a look at a cell and say, well, for these stage prospect that's unassigned, let me see what those are. When I click this, it's actually going to be dynamic enough to drill me down to what makes that information. And then if I go back, I can click on other information. It's going to take me down and do different things with that data. The next thing I'm going to do here is kind of take you to a customer profile screen. So on the customer profile screen, this is going to be more where your data is kept. You saw on the generic inquiry that I had for opportunities, I was able to use that side panel, and this is the screen that it took me to. This is going to show me some balance information I have. In this screen as well, I can now add in 2020 R1 the dashboard that we're seeing over there. I can also do maybe a generic inquiry that shows me all my open invoices. So, hey, this balance here is $200,000. Where is that? And I can see kind of due dates and what's going on with it. I can also go through this screen here and kind of see the information of this customer. So Acumatica allows 3 tabs to kind of show you your general information, who's your main contact, and your main financial settings, what kind of credit verification rules do I have, and so on. The next tab that we're looking at here is the billing settings. So I can have it be the same as the main contact, or I can uncheck that same as main box and have it go to a different person. And the next part is the delivery settings. Same thing. Where am I going to ship it to? It's going to automatically create additional locations of a main location so that if I have multiple shipping addresses, that I can actually store them. And some common information like payment methods. But I wanted to show you the mailing settings. One of the really nice things about that is it's going to allow me to assign information that's being driven from that right to this document. So when it mails, I can say who exactly it's going to, and it's going to be dynamic. If I update that billing, it's automatically going to update who gets that invoice. What I'd like to kind of tail this into here is a business event. So Acumatica offers business events with the automation features that they have, and walk through kind of a scenario where someone adds a new contact to a customer that I'm an owner of, or a business account I'm an owner of, and the contact is going to allow me to track more information. Do I have hey, someone that reaches out on opportunities. I can see different activities that are related to that I can actually see at the customer. So they're what they call related entities. So it's related to this business account. It may be related to a specific document, or maybe related to a specific contact. So for this example, what we're going to do is I'm going to add a new contact to this business account. And what I'm looking for Acumatica to do is notify me on my mobile app. And I'm also looking for a task to be created so that I know that I have to go and introduce myself to this contact. So if you just give me a moment here, I'm going to turn on my mobile sharing.
Now, I just want to let everybody know, too, that the mobile app, again, a lot of companies charge extra for, mobile users, things of that nature. There is no charge for anybody who wants to be able to access their Acumatica data via the mobile app, which, in some cases you need to do something quick. You could certainly open up the whole application, go to the screen and show it like, we've shown with the responsive design. But in this case, Acumatica has a whole series of mobile functions available, including expense management, where you actually can take pictures of your expense receipts, which I mentioned before, and actually, have that sent over to accounts payable without having to buy a Concur or some of the other add-on expense apps.
Thanks, George. To save a little time here, I'm going to take a function that is with Acumatica where I can actually save a template. So I save the template to kind of paste the information for me into this environment and into this contact lead. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to save and close it so I can show you it took me right back to the actual customer. In the new customer now, you can see I have contact there where I'm looking for Maxwell Baker, who is me, to actually go to the person and introduce myself. You see here on my mobile app here, I got notified that Alice Hobbs has been added to a contact, USA Bartending. I'm going to save that for after we kind of look at the contact and what it did in the environment here. We're going to look at the mobile app as well to see that experience. I'm going to go into Alice Hobbs. What happened was we had an activity. So the activity that we talked about was make an introduction call. So for a real life example, I would expect someone in my office, assign this contact, found out about the person. You see I put a little note here. Automatically, the system did this. Please reach out to Alice at US Bartending School and introduce yourself. So that's now a task that's associated with Alice, and it's associated to Maxwell Baker being the owner. But also at the customer's view, if I refresh this, I can now see this task is here as well. And going to my dashboard as a salesperson, I'm going to have a task here now that's visible. One is a widget, a scorecard, and the second one is kind of a data view where it's a new contact with information where I can actually open the related entity being Alice, or I can actually open up the task. So if I open up the task, you can see here's some information very similar to Outlook, and it's visible from the customer, it's visible from the contact. And again, we're going to kind of now take a look at the mobile app, how that's visible. I now have this sitting here. I'm going to touch my screen. And on my screen, you can see because it's an iPhone, I have the Face ID. So that's automatically going to log me in. And it's going to take me to that person. One thing I also want to mention that I actually skipped over was I can add additional information to my contacts, such as a photo, or just moving this over again, possibly maybe an NDA that was sent over that this particular customer or this contact has an NDA in place. And you can see I'm dragging and dropping those files directly on my screen. Just give me 1 second. Let me get my app back up here. Dragging this over here. So now I have the picture of Alice showing up on the contact. I have the additional files that were attached. But I also have the ability to maybe add a new file or take a photo. And right from the app, I can see my activity that was created as well. One last thing I want to do to kind of wrap up the full information, kind of bring it back to the beginning where we talked about universal search, was we created now someone named Hobbs. So now I have that search right in there so I can find contact Alice Hobbs. But also that image that I created was Hobbs in it, so now I have an actual image, and you can see I have one there from testing as well. Now I can go in and find that information that's been added on the fly. And to roll that out to one last cool feature in 2020 R1 is if I wanted to add, say, another image here, they now allow to upload using the system to send a notification right to my phone, so that on my phone I can again open that up and it's going to go right to what I want to do, either attach it or take a photo right from there. And you can see in the background that file is now uploaded to my task right in the system. Thanks everyone for tuning in onto this, and let us know if you have any kind of questions once George gets back on the line here.
Any questions?
So I know we were looking at the opportunities and whatnot for, sales. I don't know if you recall, but our business is transportation. Is there any way to work with very high volume of customers, sort of like a CRM management as far as like call center type scenario?
There certainly is. When you talk about high volumes, there are some case studies. They're not actual Cal case studies, but we've gotten, there are some case studies with some beverage distributor companies that, they were quoting huge transaction volumes with this Acumatica cloud platform in the 20,000 transactions a month range. Which is,
right.
So and again, obviously you need a certain level of horsepower, memory, CPUs, cores, with any, really, really large transaction. Acumatica, like some of the other cloud vendors, also has some pricing structures where, let's say, for example, if you're getting a dump of orders coming in, via, let's say a very high volume website, the pricing can be different, for that scenario, because again, you're not going to use the commercial transactions in that case, because you don't have, let's say, 10 people, entering orders on, from the application or the user interface. So there's a different user model for those type of companies that will have a, burst of transactions coming in an electronic fashion. But the answer to your question is yes. It is a very scalable system. Patty, I know you used the Great Plains system, and you also used SalesPad there. Any thoughts on what you saw today?
Yeah, it seems like a real dynamic system. And one of the things that I was thinking about is, I know that when you and I worked previously and we did our transition to Great Plains, to me the key part of that was the work that we did up front, talking about all of the processes that we currently had at that point, and how those were going to be handled, integrated, and obviously when you get a new system, something like this, there's lots of things that you can do that you weren't able to do before. So just that whole process of evaluating the business, step by step, division by division, process by process, to figure out how to do that transition. So I imagine you still do something like that, but it's probably even on a bigger scale based on the amount of options that you have.
Honestly, I can speak to that. From a Cal standpoint. We're going into our third year of running on Acumatica, and I'm amazed. And again, I'm a business owner as well as somebody who talks to people about buying new systems, but what we've been able to do with this platform, and the things that we will write a report to do that, and somebody will look at a report, but the ability to automate these tasks, provide all these dashboards in these different kind of formats. We hardly run any reports at all. We really look at the business differently. We have dashboards that just our upgrade team uses. We have dashboards that just our dev team, and we are able to look at that information that's inside of Acumatica in ways that again, we never dreamed that we could. We came from 5 systems, Microsoft CRM, Great Plains, SalesPad. We had a case management system in Kaeko, and then we also had trying to think, a project management system called Olympic. We had 5 systems. We are running on one system. I call it my journey to the single version of the truth. And I truly, can tell you that that view is better than anything that we used for 23 years. Granted, we didn't start out with 5 systems. We ended up with 5 systems because, we needed 5 systems because, not one system could do it all. But I can honestly say Acumatica over the last 3 years has continued to prove to me that we can do things that we never thought we could do.
This is Rudy Ortiz with CES Consultants. I have a question for you. I've been looking at this product, and from what I've seen so far, I think it's a great product. Great deal of time and design was put into this to develop it with cloud in mind. My company, I own 2 companies. One is an engineering consulting firm, and the other one is construction. From what I have seen clearly, this product works very well in the construction industry, but I'm wondering how from an engineering consulting side of the fence, it would integrate with that line of business.
Well, from the engineering consulting side, we have one of our Acumatica customers is a division of Colliers. I think Colliers is probably the largest, real estate, building management company in the world. And if you look at the company up in Connecticut, I think it was called Strategic Business Solutions before they were purchased by Colliers. They are specifically an engineering and consulting firm with projects that go all the way from Maine all the way down to Washington, D.C. And they are using the project management solution. They came off of Sage 50 and a bunch of disconnected Excel-based solutions. They've been with us now for almost 2 years. And again, I think they are saying the same things every day. They, especially even going through this, COVID period, they came to us and said, hey, we need a whole bunch of different tools to be able to manage because things are very different. And we were able to, basically give them different views of their projects that they were working on, different ways for their people to be able to connect from their homes, not coming into the office. Their transition was very smooth because of that. There is a construction edition, and that one is made for companies that are actually building, that are in the subcontract industry, things of that nature. So that is a further extension on top of the project accounting module that comes with, let's call it the more of the financial suite. So to be honest with you, I think it would function very well, but I'm always tentative to say it's going to be home run until I know what specific needs you have.
Okay. Thank you.
So this is Francisco from CES Consultants. Rudy was there, the owner. I have a question, since you guys are also somewhat on the consulting side of the equation. From what I've seen, I don't see scheduling per se on the actual software. Is there something that you guys use on your equation for scheduling?
Well, it's a good question. Thank you for that question. We use the consulting module. We use it. We're a consulting company, just like you are to a certain extent. We do development, which could be kind of maybe, considered similar to engineering. But we use the full accounting suite. Now, we don't use, there's a field service edition, and the field service edition does have a calendar scheduling board. Stacy, you might be able to maybe speak a little bit more to that, but yes, we can assign tickets. The CRM has both, kind of the lead management, opportunity management, but then it also has another piece of CRM that's called case management. But you can, have, let's say, for example, if someone needs to be, something comes in and it requires an engineer's attention, that can come in as a case, and then it can actually go right into the field service module, be scheduled, and then depending upon, if there's a cost to it, it can be billed out, or if there's a contract in place, there's also a contract module. I don't know, Stacy, I don't know if you want to maybe speak to that a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. So as George was saying, the case module allows you to take issues that might come in, whether it be just, general project work that you might have, or, cases that come in from your customer that will be able to log that. And as you said, it can integrate into the service module, where it's the service module that gives you visibility to what's called a calendar board. And the calendar board looks very, very similar to like your Outlook calendar. And the calendar board gives you the ability to take that work that's come in, create a ticket out of it in the service module, and it allows you to actually put it on the calendar board and schedule it, so that you can visually kind of see what's going on with your staff, what they have for availability, what they're doing throughout the day. And then you can also take those tickets that are scheduled once the work has been completed, and you can use that as the billing mechanism to invoice your customers. One other thing with the calendar board, you can actually create tickets for work that needs to be done that's not even necessarily customer related. So it does have like customer related tickets, and then also what's called like an internal ticket. So if you just have internal items that your staff needs to tend to, you can create a ticket out of those and put those on the calendar board as well, and that'll give you full visibility as to kind of what they're doing throughout the day and what availability they have.
Yeah, you can also use the mobile devices in the field for field service to even take pictures of maybe something that's fixed. You can add parts, that might be needed to maybe do the break fix or whatever.
Used.
Yeah.
And those tickets, if they were to manage them properly, would they end with timesheet, making it easier for them to do their timesheets at the end of the week?
Yes. So also based on that ticket and when they start the ticket and when they end the ticket. So each ticket has a starting functionality and ending functionality that integrates directly into the time and expense module in Acumatica. So it inserts that time activity right into their time card for them.
Francisco, this is Rudy. Are you sure when you asked a question about scheduling, you were not referring to activity level scheduling like Microsoft Project or something like that?
Yeah, well, I think there's a plugin for that that's called Smartsheet that we have to look into.
Okay.
But I wanted to see if there was something within the platform itself to be able to do that.
Okay, all right.
There is a Smartsheet integration capability directly into Acumatica. So that is similar in, functionality to a Microsoft project for resource scheduling, and that link is continuing to be expanded. We saw some really interesting improvements and some things that were on the roadmap for Smartsheet integration in upcoming versions.
Excellent. I can say just in closing here that I personally am very impressed with this product. We've spent a considerable amount of time looking at different alternatives, different tools that we can integrate to replace what we have, and Acumatica seems to be a great fit for us. And I commend Acumatica for developing such a great tool. Really, really nice.
Well, thank you. And we're as high on it as you are. I mean, we've been in the business for 37 years. And we've been a consulting organization for all those years. And like I said, we literally, could have added any solution on the market. We did 3 full years of research, looked at the, the news, postings, watched the product be developed, and made what we think is the best solution for us and our future going forward. So we're in the same, same mode that you're in right now, looking for that what can take us where we need to go, and we haven't regretted our choice of picking up Acumatica 3 years ago.
Excellent.
Okay. If there's no other questions, again, I know I've said thank you a few times, but I know everybody has a lot on their plate these days, and I truly thank you for your time and look forward to you joining our next series seminar, which should be next Wednesday, and then there's one for the following week. In the meantime, if anybody has any questions, they can go to our website. We have tons of videos that are out there. But I also want to thank Sean in particular for putting this together for us. You know, he's did a lot of homework to try to be able to fit a lot of details into literally a 35-minute window. Thank you, everyone.